Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to go ahead and start our presentation as people are continuing to log in. And while I cover some housekeeping things before we kind of get into the meat of our today's presentation on understanding federal solicitations. So first, just a little bit about who we are. We're the Apex Accelerator. Locally, we're administered by the Monterey County Business Council. Apex Accelerators have actually been around since 1985. They used to be called Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, PTACs. They're funded through the Department of Defense, and there's actually 96 centers in the United States and 7 within the state of California. And the mission of all Apex Accelerators is promote economic growth and employment opportunities in the local markets that they serve. And we do that by facilitating your access to the government marketplace. Although we're federally funded, government marketplace can be federal, state, as well as local. I mentioned there are 7 Apex Accelerators in the state. We're the teal area here in the middle of the screen, Central Coast, Central Valley. If you're in on this presentation from another part of those colored areas, either you can just reach out directly to one of them or contact us and we'll give you the contact information to contact our colleagues at any one of the other Apex Accelerators. One thing I'll add real quickly too is, because people always want to know, is you will receive copies of these slides and then you'll receive a link so you could actually see a recording of this presentation again. So these are the services that all Apex Accelerators, including us, provide. So basically, first and foremost is confidential services to you. What does that mean? First and foremost is one-on-one counseling, us kind of sitting with you, learning about your business, what you've done in the past, what you're currently doing, what then we can work with you in establishing some goals for government contracting. With that, of course, is pre-award assistance. Talk to you about, what do you need to do to go out and find where these opportunities are. Kind of like today, when you see these notices, how to kind of understand what it is that you're looking at. And then talk about capability statements. Capability statements, real quickly, is just a one-page, basically line card on your company in a format that has been developed in the federal marketplace, but it's a great piece that you can use in really introducing your company to anybody so they can quickly see who you are, what you do, and how you could benefit their company. Post-award assistance, we can help with that. Oftentimes when you are working on a contract that you've been awarded, conflict may arise. We can kind of coach you on maybe how to handle that situation. Talk to you about debriefs. When you're going through this process, you start submitting offers to the government. You always want to be asking for a debrief afterwards. If you didn't get it, you want to ask, get as much information as why you weren't selected. Even if you do win the contract, you want to ask for a debrief to kind of say, hey, what could we have done better in our offer, in our proposal? And then talk to you about protests. Oftentimes, our clients feel that they've been wronged in the procurement process, and we kind of talk to them a little bit about protest procedure. Typically, though, if you do want to file for protest, it's something then what you need to do is actually hire legal counsel who has experience in filing protests with the federal government. So to see whether it makes sense or not, depending on things like dollar value of the contract that you're talking about, how you felt that you were not treated properly, and those kinds of things. Outreach events are basically events. They go by different names, but one common one that you'll see out there is federal government likes to call industry days. But anytime we hear about them, we let you know about them. Oftentimes we're there as subject matter experts, maybe teaching something, as well as just being there to let the community know that Apex Accelerators is there to help them in their journey in the government marketplace. Trainings, webinars, as I mentioned, oftentimes at these outreach events, we're doing trainings, but then with this format that we're in today, webinars, we'll just continue to do that because we found it's a great way for us to reach a much greater audience. Bid matching is a services that all Apexes provide. Basically what it is we use a third-party vendor who has a computer system that goes out and searches all these thousands of websites where the government is posting their contract opportunities based upon the profile that we have set up with you about your business. You will be emailed any opportunities that match the profile that has been established for you. So it saves you a lot of time, effort, as well as oftentimes learning about opportunities with government agencies that maybe you hadn't even considered. And then there's certification programs. We hear a lot about certification programs, getting certified as a woman-owned business, disadvantaged business, service disabled veteran, 8A, HubZone, etc. We could talk to you about whether they make sense for your business or not, and then kind of talk to you about what the process is, and really explain to you basically all the supporting documents that are required in obtaining a certification. One of the great things is that there's no fees or commitments to you, so we're your tax dollars at work, so take advantage of that. Next, I'd just kind of like to introduce a great strategic partner of ours, the Central Coast Small Business Development Centers, commonly referred to as the SBDC. The SBDC is a Small Business Administration, SBA program, so there are thousands across the United States. The Central Coast SBDC is part of what's called the Central California Network. That's basically an area from just south of San Joaquin County all the way down to Fresno. But in these offices, they provide all kinds of support for helping people write business plans, helping them find funding, helping them better understand web presence and social media marketing, those kinds of things. Like us, there's no cost, no obligation, etc. Oftentimes when we meet somebody and they think that they want to start a business and really focus on government contracting, we might say, well, since you're just at a stage where you're just thinking about starting your business, we suggest that you work with the SBDC first, get a little bit established, and then come back to us. So they're just a great resource, and take advantage of them. If you don't know which one you should talk to, because again, there's probably, I think, 8 offices around the Central Coast, Central Valley area. But like us, a lot of the work that they do is remote, so it makes it much easier for you to work with them. So with that, let's jump into today's presentation. So here's kind of the agenda that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about some basic steps, then key terms that are really important for you to know what they are, and then the contract award process, and then some common formats, and then basic techniques to review the solicitation. And then if we have time, I'll actually take you online and we'll take a look at some real life opportunities. So basic steps, when you go, and again, this presentation is more about federal solicitations, federal opportunities. But a lot of this can be applied to any opportunity, whether it's the city, the county, or the state. But for basic steps are, first thing you want to do is read the solicitation from the beginning to the end. Once I kind of show you some things later on in this presentation, there'll be some things that you won't have to read every single time, because what you'll see is that there's boilerplate information, like a lot of the regulations that apply to government contracting that you'll see in every single contract. But once you've read it, you want to reread the solicitation. And I'll go in a little bit more detail some of this too. But then you want to really focus on these 2 areas here. Read the instructions to offer. So they're going to tell you things like when your offer is due, how it should be formatted, whether there are any kind of maybe like requirements like site visits, those kinds of things. But the instructions are really important. It'll outline oftentimes all the documents that are required for you to submit when you submit your offer. And then you want to read the evaluation factors, because that's really important that you understand that what your offer is going to be evaluated on. And so that depending on the type of solicitation that you see in the federal marketplace, it'll become really apparent of what you really need to focus on. Some cases, it might just be the price if you're selling a product, but if you're submitting like a service of some kind, then they will outline what those evaluation factors are, and you need to write your proposal in a way in which that you're addressing each one of those evaluation factors to make your proposal stand out above the competition. And then once you've kind of gone through this whole process, then you just make that go, no go decision, because every opportunity that you look at, some may make sense for your business and others might not make any sense. So you say, now that I've read this, reread it, read the evaluation factors or the instructions to it, I've decided that, let's just pass on this and then we'll go on to the next one. One of the things that I tell people too oftentimes, if you're just kind of new to submitting offers to the government, is that when you start looking at opportunities, even if some that you look at, say as an example, you feel you're only confident and you can provide a service in the state of California, it's okay to look at an opportunity that maybe is in another state like Texas or Ohio or Florida, because what you'll see is that the solicitation, the notice, is going to be pretty much identical, so that you'll see all the basically the instructions, the things that you'll need to submit with your offer in order for them to review it. So that way it makes it easier for you to start gathering that information, so that when you actually find one that's right in your backyard and you really have a strong interest in, you can respond a lot quicker. You can focus on these evaluation factors much more so than just the instructions. So let me go through some of these key terms. And again, we're talking about the federal government. So sam.gov is the website that hopefully everybody's familiar with, but you may not be. But sam.gov is where, if you want to sell directly to the federal government, in most cases, especially if it's a larger dollar value item, you need to be registered in sam.gov to sell to the government. But sam.gov is also where the government posts all their contracting opportunities, or the majority of them. Special notices is that these next few items, there are different types of notices that are within sam.gov when you're looking at contract opportunities. So a special notice might just be an announcement that, hey, there's going to be an industry day coming up, those types of things. So those may be important to you, because if there's an industry day, that's where you want to go and meet potential customers, those types of things. A sources sought notice is a notice that is posted where the government is, what they're going to do is they're going to describe an opportunity that they're wanting to purchase something. Say, as an example, they've got a construction project that they know that's coming up. In the sources sought notice, what they want to do is do their own market research and determine whether there's enough interested parties that might help them meet a socioeconomic goal. So in the sources sought notice, they're going to ask you to respond. They will describe what it is that they want to purchase. Again, as an example, construction project. And they're going to ask you, in your response to that notice, tell us whether you done projects like this in the past. Tell us whether you're qualified as either a small hub zone, woman-owned, 8A, those types of things. Because what they want to do is, in this sources sought process, make a determination of what type of set aside they may want to apply to the opportunity. I'll just jump down to a set aside there. A set aside, and actually thinking about this, I should maybe change the how I list these things. Set aside is where the government basically says, we're going to set aside this contract opportunity, and only companies that meet this socioeconomic category can submit an offer for it. So they may say the most common set aside that you'll see is it'll be a small business set aside. So they'll say only small business can submit an offer. They also may be set aside to say only 8A companies can submit an offer on this opportunity. So the set asides are important because what it does is really reduces your competition. So let's go back to the list there. So you have pre-solicitation. So pre-solicitation is a notice that kind of just gives you a little bit more information than you perhaps saw in a source of sought notice. And pre-solicitation basically is kind of gives you kind of a heads up to them, for them saying, this is a pre-solicitation, this is what we want to buy, and probably within the next 2 weeks, we're going to put out the formal solicitation. So you can already start working on your response to the opportunity that they describe in the solicitation. Once the solicitation, the next bullet point comes out is then that's the official document where they'll saying, this is what we want to buy. This is, when the offers are due. Here's all the information that you need to submit your offer to us, etc. In some cases, the item that they want to buy is fairly simple and straightforward. So they'll do what's this called combined synopsis solicitation. So again, it's just a faster way for them to buy what it is that they want to. I mentioned the set asides, really important. And one thing I want to mention is this last bullet point is lowest price technically acceptable. The misperception out there is that the lowest price always wins the contract, and that's not the case. It has to be technically acceptable. So they will look at everything that you submit to them, but it has to be technically acceptable. Your price can be much lower, but as they look at it, they say, oh, well, the reason why the price is so low, they forgot to price 4 or 5 items that we asked them to price in it. So that's why they're lower. So technically it wasn't an acceptable offer. Some more terms to just gotta add to all this is the FAR, and I'll show you something, but the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So those are all the regulations that the government needs to follow, but also all the companies that want to sell to the government need to follow. And so what you'll see is when you're looking at these solicitations, you'll see they'll always have a whole list of FARs. So that's what the FARs are. So, and some of them, as if I have the opportunity that you'll see, some of them are just kind of boilerplate stuff that once you see it and you kind of understand what it is, you don't have to take the time to read it. Sole source is a term that you hear out there, but it's not used as often as people are kind of led to believe. Sole source, when the government says, we're not going to compete this opportunity, we're just going to sole source it to this one company. It does happen, but it requires a lot more work on the contracting officers' side. So, but it does happen, but it just doesn't happen that often. Oftentimes in times of emergencies, they'll sole source things because they need something, yesterday or tomorrow. So, but don't think that it happens all the time. So this is kind of what we're going to be kind of talking about a little bit more about here in a second is RFQs, request for quotes. And in that case, typically request for quotes is going to be the government wanting to purchase a product or kind of a commodity type service. So it's really driven by price. And then you'll see an IFB, an invitation for bid, and then a request for proposal that are actually those two are kind of synonymous, but depending on who puts it together, they may use different terminology. But in the request for proposal, invitation for bid, the solution you provide is typically more important than your price. Your price has to be competitive, but it's how you're going to accomplish uh, what they need done is more important. And of course, the award is when they actually award the contract to you. You know, you'll be notified that, hey, we selected you for this contract, but at that point, you can either accept or turn down the award. It could be that you submit it, you know, you're submitting proposals to a lot of different entities at the same time. You get one award and you accept that contract, but then all of a sudden you get contacted by the government and they said, oh, we're going to award this contract to you. But then you realize, well, now I don't have the employees or the equipment or whatever to do both at the same time. So you can turn it down and there's no punishment or anything like that. And I just added this last one here, micro purchase. And micro purchase basically is items that are less than $25,000. So oftentimes the government is buying things. They just kind of find people online and, you know, or place orders, pay for it with a credit card. So those are the micro purchases are things that you don't see posted in sam.gov because the dollar value of the purchase, but you can make a lot of money selling to the government just through micro purchases alone. That's why capability statements are important, so that you get your capability statement in front of buyers. And when they do have a need for a micro purchase, they are aware of your company already. So let's just kind of jump into this. So I talked a little bit about request for proposal and then request for quotes. So this is just kind of the process. So if it's a request for proposal or invitation to bid, basically you get the notice, you review it, you say yes, you submit your offer, you know, again, whatever it is, a proposal or a bid, and then the government accepts it or turns it down. And then for what request for quote is just like it says, you know, you submit a quote, but in this case, they then say, they'll contact you and basically say, hey, yes, we'd like to make an offer to you we'd like your quote. They may come back and say, we like your quote, but could you lower it a little bit? So be aware of that. And then of course, then there's acceptance on your part and their part that in this purchase order offer segment of it, that you've come to an agreement, and then there's finally an acceptance by both parties. So a little bit more detail in the RFP process is, you know, the government puts out a requirement. That's what they call the solicitation, you know, the notice that comes out. You know, the contractor reviews it. They read it once, they read it twice, they go through it, they identify all the shall, must, will, those kinds of things, and make sure that they can meet all the criteria of the requirement. And then they put together that proposal and they submit it. Then the proposal is evaluated by the government by those evaluation factors that they've shown in section M of the document. And then from all that, they provide a score. Once they do that with all the offers, that's then where the best scoring proposal is awarded or offered the contract. So now I'm going to just kind of jump into some common forms that the federal government uses. So basically, there's a fifth one that applies basically just to engineering and architecture, but I don't list here. You don't see it as often, but these are the most common forms. And I'll show you some screenshots here in a second of these forms. But you have a standard form 18. And that's the form that they use for request for quotes. You know, again, they're buying products or they're buying a kind of a commodity type service. So that's the form that they use. And then there's a standard form 30 that's used for, and this one's really important. It's used for solicitation, modification, and contract amendments. And what that means is that it's really common that the government puts out a notice, a solicitation, but then in the process between when they first post it and when the offers are due, they will be some modifications to it. One of the things that's important is that when you look at the solicitations, you being an expert in your industry, you may look at all the information they provided you and say, well, I can't really price this because it's missing some information. So you're allowed anytime once they publish that to, they typically give you a window of maybe it's 10 days or 2 weeks to submit questions. So if there's something that you don't understand as you've gone through the document, you can submit your questions. What they'll do is they will compile all the questions they receive, and then they'll answer them, and then they'll publish that as an amendment or a modification to the solicitation. Again, on their own, they, as an example, they may put out I've seen where they'll put out a solicitation notice. On the form, it'll say one thing as far as maybe like when the offers are due, or they'll have a phone number, but then it's later on in the document, they'll have different information, so they conflict. If they catch it themselves, then they'll put submit a modification to it. It's really important because when you submit your proposals, you have to, if there have been any modifications or amendments, they're going to be posted as these SF30s. You need to print those out and sign them, and so that, and then scan it, and then submit that with your offer, which acknowledges that you've seen all the modifications or amendments and you understand them. And if you fail to submit them with your offer, even if you submit the best offer, they'll say that your offer was unresponsive because you didn't include the SF30s. So that's really important. This next one, the standard form 1449, is basically when their government is wanting to buy products, commercial items. And then the last one is the 1442, which is used for construction. One of the things that I tell people is, once say you identified an opportunity that you know you're going to propose on, or maybe not even propose on, but you really have an interest in, when you're in SAM, you want to make sure that you click that button on that opportunity where it says follow. That way, anytime there's a change, so anytime there is a modification or an amendment, you'll get an email saying there's been a change to this opportunity. So that way you're aware of it, so you would never accidentally miss acknowledging one of these SF30s that come out. So these are here's some screenshots of some of the forms. This is an SF18. As you can see, it's a request for quote up in the upper left-hand corner. And you can see here that they click these boxes, and most of this is going to be a lot of this is going to come basically filled out by the government already. So they'll click, this is or is not a small business set aside. They'll put the number of pages in it, those types of things. They'll put a number on it, date issued, who it is, contact information, those types of things. And then down here is where you will list and sometimes they'll fill this out, but it'll be blank here as far as unit price and amount. So they will tell you, this is the item number, this is what it is, this is the quantity they want, this is the unit. Then you fill out the unit price and then the extended amount to it. And this is the SF 30 regarding the modifications or amendment. Again, typically all of this is filled out. I should have included this bottom part, but typically below here, there's another box, kind of like this one, that describes what the change is in the opportunity. And then at the bottom of this document, you can see this one's short. It's 1 of 2 pages. That's what you will sign, basically acknowledging that you received the amendment modification and you understand it. Uh, So this one again is just for commercial property. You can see this one gets a little bit more different. If you look at this area here, that they're not asking that are they just looking for small business? You can see here that the form goes into, is it unrestricted, meaning anybody from Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or you as a small business can submit an offer on it. Or you can see here it says or, and they would click this box set aside, and they would check one of these boxes probably that maybe they're gonna set it aside only for a small business or a hub zone or 8A, etc. Typically, again, they're going to put in here what the next code that they've assigned to this opportunity is. So the company that's submitting their offer, if they're saying that if this is a small business set aside, then you have to indicate here, they'll indicate here what the next code is, and then the size standard, whether it's dollar value or number of employees. Let's see. So this is the 1442, and this one is for construction. And again, they're going to fill out the top of this of how they're going to do this, with it sealed bid or negotiated. Further down in here, they'll indicate if there's a set aside if they've applied to this. Again, it's common that even for construction that they'll say this has been set aside for, say, veteran-owned business, woman-owned, 8A, etc. This document, though, this form here is only 2 pages long. When you get into looking at one of these, and I'll have time, I'll show you one. The whole document itself could easily be, 90 pages or 100 pages. So here's an example of this 1449. You can see how it's already been pre-filled out. Here's the solicitation number, when they issued it. Here's the offer dates, October 4th. One of the things that this is not uncommon, where you can see that this is only like about a 2-week period between when they've issued it and when the offer is due. So that's why I was mentioning that it's important for you to just start looking at opportunities and understanding what are they going to be asking for, because it's real common they're going to ask you for maybe resumes of the people that are going to be working on the project. They're going to want to see maybe 3 past performances that you've done, so they're going to want to know the name of the contract, who was it with, person's name, their email, phone number, etc. So you can start gathering that information and having it ready to go, so that way you can concentrate just specifically on this project versus some of those things that are going to be asked for time and time again. You can see here that they put here method of solicitation, RFQ, IFB, or RFP. So in this case, they're saying it's going to all be about price, request for quote. Here you can see that they've indicated that 100% of this contract is going to be set aside for a small business. This one was on this project where basically it was a maintenance contract, and I'll just kind of leave it there. But this is in sam.gov here, and I'll go into Sam in a second real quick. But you can see here that here's our amendments that I was mentioning. Originally, this was the solicitation that came out. And again, this you can see just kind of by the file size that this one's probably much larger than the rest of these. But then these are the amendments that came out. There's one that came out the same day on the 20th, and then here's where subsequent amendments. One of these 2 amendments could easily have been, for example, the responses to the questions they received. So they're posting it so everybody's on a legal playing field. Let me get a quick drink of water here. So one of the things I mentioned kind of in the beginning is, for read the document and then reread it. And so it kind of goes back to these basic review techniques. When you're reading it, you're looking for missing, contradictory, ambiguous, inconsistent information. One thing I can tell you is that the people that put these together oftentimes aren't as knowledgeable about your industry as you are. So it's real common that there may be some missing or contradictory information in it, so where you're just kind of scratching your head saying, well, I can't really answer this or provide a price because some of this doesn't even make any sense. So that's why you need to ask your questions. This next bullet point is really important, where it says identifying binding terms, dates, and times. Dates and times, that's pretty straightforward. They're going to tell you the offer is due on such and such date at such and such location, such and such time. Again, that's going to be in the instructions. They'll tell you whether it can be accepted by email. Do you have to mail it in, or like do it like FedEx or UPS, or in some cases they want you to hand deliver them. So there'll be instructions telling you that. One thing that's really important is that with the dates and times is, like, if they say it's due on July 15th at 12 p.m. on Eastern time zone, if it shows up at 12:01 p.m. Eastern time zone, it'll be rejected. So make sure that whatever way they want it delivered, that you get it there in time. The binding terms are you shall, it's kind of goes, I guess, one down there to the bottom. Those are the shall, wish, must, required, mandatory. One of the things that you can do is you use use your software. Maybe you need to update your say your Adobe. So instead of just having Acrobat Reader, you actually have Adobe Acrobat Pro, where you can actually do a search for shall, will, and then you could highlight them. So that way you can make sure that anything that is binding, that you can deliver on all those binding items that they've listed in the proposal. Again, because if you can't, they're going to basically mark your proposal as unresponsive. Again, it means it's not technically acceptable. You want to identify the deliverables in there. So priced and unpriced. Some cases it's like, yeah, they want you to price out things. Unpriced might be things like, when the delivery times, those types of things, services that might come with it. So again, look at the document and be looking for those kinds of things. Identify key performance requirements. So a lot of this stuff might, like in this example, might apply more to construction, but there might be a bonding requirement. If you've been in construction for a long time and all you've done is private sector works, typically you're really not required to bond your work with a performance bond. But in the government, you have to do that. So make sure that if you're looking into selling contracting services to the government, that you start a relationship with your bonding agents so you can see that you qualify. Labor agreements, that comes into play oftentimes on federal contracts where you need to pay Davis-Bacon type wages. Specialized training that you may need to, your employees may need to have, equipment, certifications. It could be that whatever it is you're wanting to sell to the government, they may want to have, say, some kind of quality control expert on there. If you don't have that, you need to go find one. One thing to remember with that is you're not being singled out, so everybody else is going to have to do that as well. So make sure you understand all that and you include responses to all that. And then again, you just want to make that no-go decision. Whoever is the decision maker with your company, maybe, nobody makes the decision by themselves, but you bring in your team and say, should we proceed and take the time and effort to actually put together a full-blown proposal or this. Or now that we've gone through all the binding terms, we realized that we're lacking some stuff, and based upon the dates of when this is due, we just really don't have time to put this all together and say a 2-week time frame. Now you could do it, and I sometimes suggest to people do it anyways, because you'll learn from the process every time you submit a proposal. So by doing it one time, even though maybe you feel that you really don't have a strong chance of winning the contract, you'll learn from the process. You'll learn that, okay, we can do this faster. But now that we say, as an example, got our references together, now they're good to go for next time. So it's just a matter of downloading a file versus actually contacting people and saying, hey, I'm going to use you as a reference. Are you okay with that? Is you okay for me to provide your email and phone number in case you get a call from the government about the project we did for you? So don't hesitate in doing something like that. So you'll learn it every time. You'll get better and better at this every single time. So let's see the real thing. So, okay, let me stop this here and do another one. So this is sam.gov. Let me get rid of that so I can see what I'm doing better. Get rid of this to blow it up a little bit. So I mentioned this is sam.gov. If you're not familiar with it, this is where the government posts their contracting opportunities. So it's right here. You click on that. Typically, I always do an advanced search. I'm just going to put in here here's where you talked earlier about notice types. And you can see if I click here and go down, there's all these lists of different kinds of notices that we talked about. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a code. This is for construction. And then I'm just for kicks, I'm just going to put place of performance, California, just to make the list more manageable. And you can see every time I click on the left on one of these filters, it refreshes this list. Let's see here. I was looking at one of these. So this is here's one here that I kind of wanted to show. You can see here it says San Francisco Fire Station and Barracks Construction. And they put in bold here, this post is a pre-solicitation using the format from FAR 502. So this is not a request for proposal. So it's letting people know this isn't a solicitation yet. But what it's doing is kind of letting people know that this is coming up, so you can start preparing for it. Likewise, this one here says this is updated sources sought notice. So at one point there was a sources sought notice for this VA campus, and they did an industry day, so they talked about it. So these are the slides that they created at that presentation. Let's go down here one of these. So this one here is a sole source. So it could be, depending on what this contract is required, that they figured, the best way for them to get the work done is by going with this one company, CGW Construction, to actually do the work. Just kinda, let's look at this one here. So this is the title of this opportunity: Rehab Historic RCA Receiving Station, National Park Service 4. You scroll down a little bit and here's some information on it. Originally, they published this June 29th. They originally published it May 31st, and then they changed it June 28th. And so originally the offers were due July 1st, and now the updated offers were actually due yesterday, July 9th. And you can see here, they tell you July 9th, 3:00 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And then you scroll down a little bit, here's they'll tell you what the set aside is. So they're saying that this is a total small business set aside. And this is the next code that they assigned to it, and then place of performance. One of the things that's really common is that where the contracting offers for the opportunity might be in one state, but the place of performance may be in another state. So be aware of that. So you always want to kind of look at where the place of performance is. And then here you can see that, as I mentioned, this was the original solicitation right here. It says solicitation. And you can see that here all these amendments came out. Basically, these came out at the same time. Wage determination came out because they wanted that separate. But here's a site visit, driving directions. So with this one, and with site visits, sometimes they're mandatory. So if you can't get one of your employees to attend that site visit, then you'll be considered, your offer won't even be considered. Sometimes they're voluntary, so that way, it's to help you to really understand the project better, the layout of everything. But if it is mandatory, you got to make sure at least somebody from your team goes there and signs. You can see here's a site visit sign-in sheet, so that you can, your name, you want to make sure that your name is on this sign-in sheet. If it's not, then your offer won't even be accepted. Let's take a quick look at this notice. I think I need to stop my share. Do it again. So this is the notice. So this one you can see is, like I mentioned, this is a 53 pages long. And as you go through it, they really describe the whole project, etc. All these things here, all these are FARs. These numbers 52, 252, blah, blah, blah. So again, most of these you're going to see in every single opportunity that you look at. Then you can see here's what they're looking to purchase per this: clearing and grubbing, contract patch and repair, painting, rehabilitation, etc. Quantity 1. Unit of measurement, this LS means lump sum. So what you're going to charge. Further down in here, they'll kind of describe the area that needs to be cleared and grubbed. They'll describe the compact patch and repair. Again, through the site visit, you would learn a lot more about really what it's going to entail for you to do the clearing and grubbing, how much time and effort it's really going to take to do the concrete patching, etc. So attending those site visits really knowledgeable. The other thing I can say about attending a site visit, it is oftentimes will allow you to ask a question of contracting officers or project managers of the government who are going to be on this project, and get kind of inside information that you wouldn't be able to receive if you go through the formal Q&A process where you're asking a question and then it's answered and then it's posted as an amendment to the opportunity. So, and then it's a way too that if you're talking to somebody, oftentimes the people that are there some of the people will be the people that'll be part of that evaluation team. So if you go and you make a really good first impression there, they'll remember that while they go through the evaluation process, and they'll say, oh, I remember this company. Yeah, I was really impressed by the questions they asked and those kinds of things. So I'm going to stop this share, and then I'm going to show you just one other thing. Uh, losing my juice here that I wanted you to see. So this is a solicitation for a construction project too. So it's a firehouse and kitchen and bathroom remodel job. And you can see here that they say next code is 236220. It's a small business set aside, and then they kind of give you a project magnitude. The magnitude of this project is estimated between the 100 and 250,000. So you say, okay, yeah, that's in my kind of wheelhouse. You know, if it was 100, 250 million, probably more than I could handle. Then again, here's some instructions of, sealed offers are in original and 2 copies before the work are due at the place specified in item 8 by 12 a.m. Blah, blah, blah. So again, you can't just email it. They want a sealed offer. One of the things I wanted to kind of point out with this is, let me kind of go through this real quick here. These are all FARs, like I mentioned. So a lot of this stuff, again, you're going to see in every single contract, all these clauses related to, like, here's one, notice the government of labor disputes, convict labor, prohibition of contracting with inverted domestic corporation, protecting the government's interest when subcontracting with contractors debarred, suspended, or proposed for debarment. So you just need to be aware of those. And like that one I just read here, is that basically, you can't use subcontractors who have been barred from selling to the federal government. I want to point this out here. This is coming up. In this contract, they have this clause here that says NIST 800, SP 800, 171 DOD assessment requirements. This is a cybersecurity requirement that basically states that your company needs to go through a cybersecurity assessment. And then once you do that assessment, you have to upload a score, but you need to do that assessment to be in compliance in selling to the government for this contract. It all has to do with you handling what they call controlled unclassified information. Because this project happens to be on a military base, it's kind of like automatically included in that. Right now you're hearing it referred to as CMMC 2.0, but it's something that you need to be aware of. And if you haven't looked into it, you need to start looking into it. The government does have set up a free program. It's called Project Spectrum, where you can go in there and do an assessment on your company and then receive a score that you can upload in their system so that you'll be in compliance with this. So it's really important. But again, in here it says that you have done this. So make sure that you've done it, because if you haven't, it could be that you're awarded the contract and then are fined later on when they find out that you're not in compliance, or it could be that they will look to see whether you're in compliance before awarding you the contract, and maybe they wanted to award you the contract, and once they found out you weren't in compliance, they decided they're not going to award you the contract. So with that, I'll just kind of reiterate that let me go back to the PowerPoint real quick. You'll receive copies of this presentation as well as a link to the recording. The other thing I can say is a lot of this can seem real confusing, so we're here to help you kind of even understand this as a deeper dive. A lot of it works better when you're looking at a specific solicitation, and we can walk you through the document so that you understand it, etc. So that's what we're here to do, is to help you. Our next upcoming webinars is both are going to be on market research. So the first one on July 21st is, how can you go out there and do market research of finding federal opportunities that are out there? But everything that we looked at today was federal. And then we're going to do the same thing on market research for the state of California. And when I say state of California, it means the state, not, local counties and cities and stuff like that. But and maybe if we have time in that, maybe we'll cover some of that. But I think these will be really useful to you, because one of the things is you want to be able to start doing some of that market research, so you can realize, okay, who buys what I sell, and what's the low hanging fruit for me where I can get my foot in the door and then start growing my government business from there. So if anybody has any questions, I believe you can just put them in the Q&A and then I'll see them. And then if not, like I said, reach out to us, and then we'll set up a time where we can sit down, talk with you, and really help you through any of these proposals that you're looking at. And depending on which one of those that you're looking at, I mentioned how there's like a request for quote, and then some for services of construction. Some are much simpler than others. So you'll see that. Again, for small purchases, less than $25,000, contracting officer basically maybe it's just found you online, or you've met them somewhere at one of these outreach events, industry day type events, and now that they understand what it is that you buy and say, hey, I have a need for that they may just kind of call you and say, hey, give me a quote on XYZ product. You do it, and they say, great, we'll take it. Here's my credit card number, and then it's that easy. But typically, again, those are for smaller purchases, but less than $25,000. That can add up pretty quickly. And again, it's one of the things too that it's common that you'll see in the government marketplace, is that the government will, like anything, try you out on a smaller purchase. If you deliver the way you said that you would, then they kind of consider you for something a little bit larger, and it just kind of builds from there. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you all for joining us, and then I hope we see you on July 24th on doing market research in the federal government. Talk to you soon. Bye.